In this ever chaotic universe of video games, a few gems stand out as delightful throwbacks to the days when 16-bit graphics reigned supreme and stories were about saving the world from a vaguely defined evil. Enter Sea of Stars, an indie RPG from Sabotage Studio, released on the 29th of August 2023. This game not only brings back the charm of classic RPGs, but does so with a wink and a nudge, making it an entertaining and artistic-filled journey with humor and memorable moments. So grab your pixelated sword and prepare for the spoiler-filled adventure through what makes Sea of Stars a shining star in the gaming sky. Sea of Stars kicks off with Valia and Zale, two kids who are really good at absorbing vitamin D and moonlight respectively. They're the children of Solstice, destined to stop the Flashmancer. Yes, that's his actual name, and no, he didn't get it from cereal box. This evil alchemist has decided to ruin everyone's day by creating monstrous beings, because why not? From the get-go, the game throws you into an epic quest that balances emotional depth with tongue-in-cheek humor. Our heroes aren't just about saving the world, they're about cracking jokes, making light of their often absurd circumstances, and bonding over their shared destiny. The dialogue is sharp and witty, filled with moments that make you chuckle and others that tug at your heartstrings. One minute you're laughing at a joke about Zale's nocturnal nature, and the next you're tearing up about a poignant backstory reveal. Before we continue on any longer, I must let y'all know that this video might end up being another deep dive similar to my Dance Gavin Dance one, because with the experience I had just with this game, I refuse to let it be just another short video on the channel. Dog. It's been a while since a new game, without an already existing franchise like Final Fantasy or Legend of Zelda, has gotten me this hooked and immersed in the journeys of people that don't exist. This will be a bit all over the place, but I'll try my best to make it work. Let's start off with the characters, shall we? Our playable ones include Valia, Zale, Gar, Sarai, Reshan, and Bis. I'm pretty sure I butchered half those names by the time. As I mentioned earlier, Zale and Valia are made to defeat the great evils of the Flashmancer, all the way from birth. No kidding. Valia's title is the Lunar Monk. Oh yeah, that's something that you're gonna need to get used to, by the way. A good amount of the main characters and even the side characters have titles to be addressed as besides their names. Valia has the power of the moon guardian goddess Luana. The Elder Mist, who is this game's foreteller in a way, predicted that Valia would one day be able to create paths on water. Spoiler, she did. When it comes to combat, Valia is so clutch with her Moonerang ability, which allows you to hit multiple targets for a hefty piece of damage. Also, her Lunar Shield saved me more times than I can count. The Lunar Shield essentially gives you a one-time protection shield from any kind of damage. So if an enemy, whether it be fodder or a boss, if they only hit your character or characters once, that would be it for their turn, and you would be safe from whatever onslaught and ass whooping you were just receiving, just like me. Valia is known to be headstrong at times and a bit rash, but fortunately this is where Zale comes in to balance her out with his optimism and calmness. Zale is the sun counterpart of Valia and has the title Solar Blade Dancer. He received his power from the guardian god Solon. The Elder Mist foretold that in order to find his light and achieve his full potential, Zale would need to first stare in the night inside of him. Zale's abilities are more focused on dealing damage to his opponents, but they come in clutch since 3 out of the 4 abilities, including his ultimate, Solon's Light Salvation, attack all enemies in sight. This comes in hella handy depending on the types of enemies you engage in combat with, and especially with the bosses who either have limbs or enemy henchmen which you would want to take out to make your life and journey through the game much easier. The reason I didn't talk so much about the Sun Boy and Moon Girl so much, personality wise, is because they kind of lacked in that department. But I believe it was also because of the simple approach the company wanted to go for, and that also to make the other characters shine, because damn, these side characters are amazing, and some of their backstories are even better than the Solstice Warriors. Have you ever had a nice, warm hug? One that you could remember no matter how long ago? That's the character Gal for me. He's the best friend of Zale and Valia, and throughout the course of this journey, he ended up becoming my best friend as well. Gal is a funny, kind, and compassionate soul whose only desire in life is to have a great journey with his friends and help those he comes in contact with. Unlike the 2 previous characters, Gal isn't a Solstice Warrior, nor does he have any powers. He's very much a real human being, which aids in his likability and relatability in the story. Gal is known as a warrior cook to reflect his combat style and attitude in life. That is, to make use of what he's been given. Gal was barred from training with our Solstice Warriors by Headmaster Moraine, and when they explored a cave as kids, Gal lost his eye as a result of his naivety. He's constantly reminded of his limitations, verbally and non-verbally, by other characters. despite this, Gal never lets any of it get to him. Sure, he admits it kinda sucks, but he's never really negative about it and uses it as fuel to push him forward. I love how Gal always has this happy approach to life, and this actually reminded me to apply his principles to mine. Gal reminds me of a real life friend I have, and his name is Russian. I try not to mix too much of my personal life in relation to those I know, but I had to. If you want to know what he looks like, he's on the thumbnail of one of my older videos. If I laugh, they get my channel. He's the guy on the right of it, along with my brother Nikhil in the middle, and my other brother Ram on the left. I couldn't pick all of them, so I just decided to pick one, for the sake of the video. I even called Russian, asking if I could include him in this segment of the video, and without hesitation, he gave me his approval while he was at work. What a great guy, truly. Similar to Gal, he has the biggest heart ever, despite some awful things that have happened in his life, particularly this year. Now, I won't go into them in detail because I promised him that, but Gal reminded me of him so much, it's crazy. No matter how busy they were, they had time for those around them. And especially, no matter how cruel life became towards them, they kept their heads up high and kept on moving forward. I'm proud to call Russian my friend and my brother. I love the guy more than words could ever express, and the other boys have helped me through so much, sometimes just by being them, which was more than enough for me at times. So, if any of you boys end up watching this video, I want to let you know that I love you truly from the bottom of my heart, from your little brother. The elder mist's protection for Gal was that he might be warm enough to soothe a long, tormented soul, referring to the sleeper. Experiencing this game and this journey with Gal inspired me to be kinder and a better human being to other people, and just in general. Let me tell you how great Gal was. He was a great assist in combat with healing and dialogue and out of combat. He ended up soothing the sleeper, a long tormented soul who was bitter due to some events that happened to him. Gal got a city named after him that he helped build, Mirth, due to how much the civilians from the previous town of Brisk loved him, with him helping them out after their previous town got destroyed by the Dweller of Woe. We'll get to the Dwellers later on in this video. Gal managed to calm down one of the earlier bosses, Malcolmud, granted after we beat him, which caused the ripple effect in his heart and actually helped us progress at an important part of this story. I usually exaggerate a lot, but no joke, if it wasn't for Gal, that last third of the game wouldn't have been possible, with him allowing for the rest of the crew to make their way to the self-titled Sea of Stars and make their way to defeat the Fleshmancer. Now, for those of you that haven't played the game and for some reason are still here, here's the biggest spoiler. In case you couldn't catch on with the sad Naruto OST in the background, Gal dies. I think this might have been the first time in a while, or ever, that I've gotten this sad about a video game character. Dog, I mean, sad enough to cry. At some point around 2/3 of the journey in, Sarai, another one of the main characters, intervenes between a conversation / conflict between Reshan and Alforel and takes Reshan's time veil and tosses it at Alforel. This ended up resulting in breaking the agreement those two had between each other, which was to not get involved in the events of this world. Directly at least, because they kind of are responsible for it. Alforel, angered by this, proceeds to take the time vial thrown at him and proceeds to throw it back at the crew, which I believe was going to hit Sarai initially as karma for what she did to break the agreement. However, our heroic warrior cook steps in and throws himself in the fray. Reshan slows down time for a bit, technically, but I'm not gonna get into the mechanisms of that. In this slowdown time, he has a conversation with his old friend. I know, long story, and we'll get to that too. After time resumes back to normal, the time vial, which would have hit Sarai, ends up hitting Gal instead, because why wouldn't it? In case you can't tell, I'm still very much affected by this. Initially, we're believed to have thought that he died. However, it's revealed that he's running on borrowed time. Quick note, I was wrong about one of the early details. Sarai tossed the time vial into the Dweller of Strife, not Alforel, and he in turn was going to hit Zale and Valia instead. If I'm wrong on anything and you notice, please feel free to correct me in the comments. Similar to the Kingdom Hearts video in the Dance Game and Dance one I made with my editor, it is easy to miss out on tiny details like this when you're going in detail as opposed to summing things up like in my movie reviews. Back to Gal. He ends up running on borrowed time and it affects him and the crew dearly. Everything from his appearance fading at times and him feeling sharp pain as a result of taking the hit. Gal's time was delayed until he got his friends where he needed to be, and despite him being on his way to death's door, he was never once negative about it. Now, I know you can come and say the obvious with something like, oh, he doesn't exist, which is true. However, his attitude and optimisms are things I believe that we as people should strive for. In his last moments, all he could think about was how grateful he was to have his wonderful friends, Zale and Valia, meet and connect with everyone else and have a great journey, learn new things, and help wherever he could. How can you not love this man? Seriously, he's like everything right in a human being. Ironically, without being born special like the Sun Boy and Moon Girl. Although, now that I think about it, he was born in a special way, with his absolute heart of gold. In his last moments, after thanking everyone, his very last request was to be buried in Moon Cradle, which is where the main trio were born and raised at. Don't even get me started with his funeral scene and the way it was beautifully animated and brought to life. He had pretty much everyone he had ever met and touched personally, which was a lot of people that attended. Dog, I cried so much that it wasn't funny, and even saying some parts of the script, like, I'm trying to fight back some of these tears, but it's hard. I genuinely cried like I lost my best friend, because to me, and with the experience I had, I did, and a part of me died on the inside when he left. I could no longer see him on my screen or in my party, get to read his cheerful and enthusiastic dialogue, and the worst one of all, not even get to see him on my loading screen at the campfire. You could feel the full weight of him leaving, and despite him passing away, everyone carried the attitude of gone but not forgotten. To whoever in the studio, whether it be an individual or group that worked on Gal and his character, I want to say thank you for making a genuine piece of art right here. You may not exist, but you'll forever live on in my heart, Gal. Now, let's move on to our next character, Sarai. First things first, can I say, damn, she's hot. If my girlfriend ever watches this video, which I doubt she will, but if she does, baby, you didn't hear anything.
It won't let you remember. Sorry.
Jokes aside, Sarai has a cool color design with green and black. Did I also forget to mention that she's a freaking assassin who can teleport and is part cyborg? Yeah, the lore in this game goes deep, boys and girls. Sarai, for the first third of the game, I'd like to say, is very mysterious and cold, despite her helping us out in the earlier game, even when we didn't know much about her. Sarai is straightforward and typically impatient. I think the time vial example from earlier should have been a good indicator of that. Despite this, Sarai is fairly kind, but unlike Gal, she doesn't express this in words, she purely expresses it in action. A scene that displays this is when Gal got possessed and was about to lose his mind and soul early on. But Sarai paralyzed him, despite this being a weird way to help out. If it wasn't for this act right here, the Gal we knew would have been gone a lot early in the game. I'm talking about 5 to 10 hours in the game, by the way, and Gal died around 20 to 25 hours in. Next, let's talk about the Archivist. He was a mysterious and immortal being stuck in a library of sorts, figuring out ways to defeat the Fleshmancer. Think of the Archivist as the narrator of sorts. The party eventually travels to the Great Archives, where the Archivist reveals himself to be Rayshawn. I thought this was a really cool twist with the reveal and the fact that our main characters could actually engage with the narrator and have him join our party. Rayshawn and A4's stories are interconnected, so get ready for this one, y'all. Get your popcorn. Countless years before the events of this game, Rayshawn was a powerful alchemist who set out to create the elixir of life with his good old buddy old pal of the time, A4. The two succeeded and gained immortality, but at a price. What is the price, you ask? Well, the price is the fact that their bodies decayed and became disfigured, which is the reason they wear their specifically made robes to conceal them. These two ended up spending centuries nurturing the world. But eventually, Alforel ended up becoming jealous and enraged at human beings, ironically hating their limited lifespan because it reminded him of what he ran away from and got swiftly rewarded for. A4 began to curse the world with his abominations and monsters as a result through the forbidden schools of alchemy. He then went on to embrace the title of the Fleshmancer. Rayshawn attempted to stop him, but his old friend's creations ended up becoming far too strong. As a last-ditch effort, Rayshawn used some forbidden alchemy of his own on space and time in order to look through the countless timelines and universes in order to look for a solution to stop the Fleshmancer once and for all. Now, let's get into A4 because he's fairly interesting. Everything from his dialogue, his character design, and the way he affects the world. If anything, this guy reminds me of Xehanort from Kingdom Hearts. The similarity between them being that nearly every bad thing in their respective universe and timeline, and others for that fact, are a direct cause of their actions. Like, bro, there's evil, and then there's this guy. My goodness, the only good thing about him is the agreement he has with his old buddy, Rayshawn. Because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't want to imagine how much worse their world would have been. Let me give you a quick rundown of the horrific stuff he did, or as a result of his actions. He's responsible for every monster and abomination, fodder, dwellers, which are massive pieces of flesh and a lack of humanity, and world eaters, which are the evolved forms. What is this? Pokemon? Jokes aside, he's also the reason Gal is dead, partially. Chain the gorilla matriarch while having her kids be sacrificed without them knowing is the reason Sarai's peoples are cyborgs. He caused Bus and his people to have their souls detached from their bodies entirely. Trapped Kale and his friends in the Clockwork Tower, forcing them to be elderly child slaves forever. Yes, you heard that right. With their only alternative being death if they leave the venue, and also him corrupting Brugaves and Erlina. I'm sure I missed some other details, but that alone should have the sick demon be burning in hell forever.
You sick freak!
Like, I know he was bitter, but to do even half of the horrific acts he committed throughout the course of this game would make terrorists sweep. Up next, let's talk about another iconic duo, Erlina and Brugaves. These two were Solstice warriors and took on the role of older brother and sister figures to Zale and Villia, and mentors as well. They trained them, and the kids were always so excited to see them and hear about their journeys as well. But all good things must come to an end, and it was actually foreshadowed in the beginning. Erlina and Brugaves had issues with the headmaster Moraine, with the way he conducted things, with training Zale and Villia so young, and with the knowing of the dangers of fighting the Dwellers, World Eaters, and the other creations of the Flashmancer. Brugaves' main problem was that he was always too slow to learn magic and was scolded for it. The main catalyst for this was the loss of damn near every Solstice warrior at the hands of the Dweller of Strife. For crying out loud, Moraine was the only survivor of that. However, unlike Erlina, Brugaves feels sadness more in his heart than he does anger towards the situation, and he desires to forget everything that has happened and to never fight Zale and Villia ever again. Due to him being cold slow at learning to master lunar magic, he decided to feel fit and adequate in his role for once. Oh boy, be careful what you wish for, because that's a common theme in this game. Despite all this, Brugaves did care about Zale and Villia and even offered them to be free and join him and Erlina, to which that offer was swiftly refused. It's a shame that Erlina was a traitor as well, because damn, she was hot. She was my main crush in this game until this happened. I'm telling y'all, the investment is real. I didn't spend 30 plus hours to not get attached. She loves the kids like Brugaves does. However, she's a little less jolly and more serious than Brugaves was. For instance, she attempted to warn the Sky siblings, which is what I'm calling them now, about the lives and fates of the Solstice warriors, only to be silenced by Moraine. When the older sibling duo betrayed us, Erlina was revealed to be more colder about it and less disheartened about the situation than Brugaves was, revealing how they differ and balance each other out. Hell, the only reason why she let the Sky siblings live was because Brugaves requested her to do so, not out of the goodness of her heart. Whatever goodness she did have remaining was left in reserve for Brugaves. We also found out that Erlina was power hungry, as seen when she asked Aephoril for power above all, thus reflecting her bolder nature. We'll get back to them later. Next up, we've got the Acolytes, four-hooded gimps who solely exist to live for their master, the Fleshmancer, by resurrecting the Dweller of Strife. Their names are quite literally the first four numbers. Not hard to remember that, which makes for a simple experience with the vast amount of characters and locations we have to remember. We're foreshadowed with cutscenes of them before we actually engage in combat and have to fight them. At first, you fight them off in two-man teams, and then for your final encounter, you have to take on all four of the lovely bastards, just Peachy. Am I right? Like everyone else, the extras on them can wait. For those of y'all wondering, the extras will be revealed in the location section of their respective parts. I told y'all I wasn't kidding when I said this video was gonna be a deep dive. Next up, we've got Teeks, who's missing a W in the name because damn does this crackhead tweak a lot. All jokes aside, Teeks is a lovable and energetic character who's eager to learn more about the history of the world, with being the last historian. There is so much lore in this game that it's amazing. I'll get to it later on. I promise y'all, everything will have its place. And if I forget it, I don't doubt for a second that y'all will never let me forget and live it down. We've also got Captain Cliche and their pirate crew. In case it didn't hit you, like it did me, a lot later than I'd like to admit, the captain is Sarai. The rest of the members of the crew include Valtrade, Yolande, and Keenathan. Dog, I love this crew so much. Everything from Yolande's outspoken personality, Keenathan being good at everything, Valtrade's muscles, and their loyalty to their captain and their overall camaraderie. They remind me of why I love One Piece so much, because of the journey and connections between each of the characters. As for Hortense and Stormcaller, I'll talk about them during the lore section. Now, let's get to talking about the locations, because I did promise that the extras would come after that. The locations in this world add so much life to this game, with all the different amount of colors, terrain, and placement they put of objects and buildings they added. I'll go through a couple of the locations, and let's just say some will have more yapping about them than others. First things first, let's start off with Moon Cradle. Moon Cradle, as I mentioned earlier, is where 3 of our main characters, Azael, Valir, and Gal, were born and raised in. I really love the homey and calming atmosphere of Moon Cradle. I love its defining use of the colors purple, blue, pink, with a little bit of yellow. It also somewhat, despite very little, reminds me of the hometowns of every Pokemon game, mainly the 2D ones, with its simplistic layout. That's not a bad thing, by the way, y'all. These are the types of graphics and aesthetics that I grew up with on the DS and its wonderful library of games. Next up, we've got the Stonemasons Outpost. This village seems a little more interconnected than the previous, with its various staircases and pathways. The more I look at this place, even the insides, like the homes and merchant shops, it reminds me of a slightly similar visual appeal to Goron City from Breath of the Wild. Another amazing game with its interconnectedness and decent uses of brown colors. Although a key difference between Goron City and the Stonemasons Outpost is that the former also has a lot more lava running around through the course of its city, as where the latter doesn't, thankfully. Another location I really love is the Port Town of Brisk. This place really adds to the theme of adventure, with its layout resembling one from an older time, the pirate ships, pirates, and various rooftops throughout this place. And trust me, there's a lot of these bastards. Slight detour, but still on topic, I really love the fishing lakes. In between every major and minor location throughout the course of the story, there are fishing lakes which are very simplistic in design, allow you to fill up your inventory with soon-to-be fillets, and also provide a nice break to take from the seriousness of the story. I went fishing once before, in real life, and the peace it gave me was unmatched. So to be able to do that in-game was also really nice. Despite the obvious being that it's a game, there's obviously a lot more dopamine involved in this. Towards the northwest of Mirth, you end up stumbling upon this beautiful and marvelous place called the Ancient Crypt. It contains commemorative stones, statues, and monuments to honor high-tier backers of the Kickstarter for this game, which I just found out while writing the script. You learn something new every day, because if I remember correctly, in the game, it doesn't directly mention the Kickstarter, so I just thought it was a cool part of lore to add to the overall world and scope of this game. The freaking layout and design of this section is amazing, with the use of darker colors such as grey and brown, contrasted with the green and orange to help further the message of honoring those in this place. Now, we have come at the point of time to talk about easily my favorite location in the entire game, the Clockwork Castle. It's the place where Kale and his friends were turned into eternal child workers, and was the previous stronghold of the Fleshmancer, as evidenced by the acolytes gathering here for a good amount of the game until they come to confront us. I love this place's great use of the colors brown, maroon, and yellow. And dog, that scene when you're scaling some rocks with the crew and you're able to see the Clockwork Castle in the distance? Oh my days! That's an orgasm if I've ever seen it. Its wonderful mix of colors, bricks, gears, clocks, and layers give me the feeling as if I'm in a mix of a cathedral and at Hogwarts. It's just something magical about this place, man. If you didn't fall in love with this place, I'm gonna need you to scrub your eyeballs out and get some new ones. Let me tell y'all, about the Cloud Kingdom.
Let me talk to you!
This place is wonderful with its beautiful mixes of white, blue, and green. Sky levels have always fascinated me with how cool and majestic they are, adding to the immersion and journey I was having. Also, the sheer scale of how big these beings are was insane. For instance, most of them are standing and we can't see more than past their legs. As for the council, those guys were sitting down and we couldn't see past their respective chest areas. When I saw them, I said to myself, damn, these guys are huge as hell. It was a beautiful and simple design like a lot of the other places in this game. That's another thing I feel that this game does really well in, is the fact that it uses its simplicity as a strength to aid in the immersion and journey of this game. Let's talk about the wonderful town of Repine, aka Sarai's hometown. I love the night feel of it with the use of green, purple, and grey, adding to the hopeless feel of this place because damn, do the citizens have a tragic backstory. A while back, due to the hands of the Soul Curator and the Catalyst, Sarai and her people were turned into cyborgs against their will, stripping them of parts of their humanity, and also with the moon covering the city, which is the main reason why it has that nightlife feel. It was amazing getting to move that moon out of the way and add some life into this bleak land of Repine. For the last main location, we'll be talking about the Fleshmancer's lair. I really love the look of this place with the use of grey, purple, and green, and a little bit of orange. It adds to the dark feel of this place with it being the main bad guy's hideout. I love the floating tiles, skulls, the cultists, and the detailed, beautiful, and horribly disturbing pieces of flesh throughout the castle. Also, can I say that the music in this section of the game had no business going this damn hard. Legit, when I was playing through this location and the final boss fight, I was thinking to myself, this is a banger and a half. Without further ado, let's transition into the next point, which is the music/sounds of the game. Everything from the calming sounds of the campfires in-game to the loading screen, the amped up and more intense music during the combat, particularly boss fights, and specialized OSTs for cutscenes or pieces of dialogue. If you can think of it or name it, then this game probably did and have it within the sound design department. Funny thing is, I'm listening to the OST while I was writing the script for this video, and hot diggity damn, yes, I just said that, it's freaking beautiful. The vast and varied sounds add to the openness and adventure of this game. Its freedom may not be on par with the likes of Breath of the Wild, but I definitely appreciate this game as its own thing. I briefly skimmed on this in the beginning, but dog, pixel art aesthetic of Sea of Stars is beautiful. Getting to experience this in the modern day is a treat, as there is a lot more focus on 3D games nowadays with the progression of the gaming society. But some fans like me can appreciate the 3D along with the 2D elements/pixel art. This is why indie games have been popping off for the last couple of years. Examples of these are Hollow Knight, Hades, Octopath Traveler, and more. Sea of Stars also gave me a nostalgic trip because I grew up with older consoles like some of you, such as the PS2 and DS and PSP. Now, while I'm all for innovation and moving things forward, I don't believe we should completely abandon the older styles and looks of gaming entirely just to keep up with the modern trends. Because this reminds me of back in the day. Oh yikes, I'm actually getting older. Moving on, this reminds me of my days in primary school when I would do damn near nothing in my free time besides watch Foxtel, play Pokemon Platinum, my first ever Pokemon game, Sonic Rush, and Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood. Now, despite me never being that good at video games when I was younger, there was something magical about these games. The immersion was on a different level, and while the plot may have been simple, similar to Sea of Stars, that simplicity allowed for the characters and their respective worlds to shine. The music was memorable, the scenes were beautiful, we didn't have stupid microtransactions. I'm looking at you, Ubisoft. We weren't also caught up with how much time these took to complete or rush them, and most importantly above all, they were straight up fun. Now, before I get some mentally ill people in my comments, this is a generalization because some of my favorite games ever are in the modern day and age. A few examples being Breath of the Wild, Danganronpa 2, Hades, and Kingdom Hearts 2. But it feels like the more we get into the future, the more steps backwards we're taking sometimes. Granted, this is criticism mainly pointed towards the AAA game scene. I am aware, y'all. Also, let's appreciate the cutscenes, y'all. What I really love about them, besides them being beautiful, is that they're never too long, are memorable, and are spaced apart nicely. Because with games becoming more complicated now, sometimes the cutscenes can be unnecessarily long. A good example of this is the Final Fantasy series. Sometimes it can be great to establish things, and other times it can be a straight up nuisance if I'm being honest. The cutscenes in this game are great, from the introduction of Brugaves and Erlina, the Portent of Risk, the Fleshmancer, the Blood Moon, and more. You can clearly feel that the group of people who are responsible for the cutscenes in this game loved what they did, and it shows. Damn! Also, that scene of the crew traveling along the self-titled Sea of Stars literally was breathtaking. This was also a noticeable case of the game utilizing 3D graphics in a way which helped enhance the experience of the game and this very moment. Dude, look how beautiful the scene is. This is enough to make a grown man cry. Tears of joy though. Also loved how this game was great at immersing you in its world, characters, and events. It's one thing to play a game, and it's another to feel like you truly experienced it and were a part of the journey, like it actually happened in real life. I know each gamer has games that did that for them, and I'm curious to know which games did that for you, irrespective of what genre or console they were on, and why, if possible. If you watched the Kingdom Hearts video, then you would already know how much I love boss fights. They add so much to the story and help add depth to the characters as well, depending on the given fights. Also, they're just plain old fun. For example, Wurgrid is your first exam test to see if you're ready to go out into the world, defend yourselves, and move on in your journey. The Elder Mist boss fight is another great one as it builds on the same themes as before. Plus, I love how you're meant to deal with him, which is how you'll deal with a good amount of the bosses in the story. You normally have to defeat the limbs, weapons, or henchmen that are summoned by the boss. This is because they'll either make your life hell, or in the case of the limbs, if you attack the boss straight up instead, while the health is still up, then guess what? The boss will proceed to do a counterattack, aka get an extra turn in and mollywop your candy ass. I also love the combat in this game, which plays into this. For instance, you'll find out along your journey that certain enemies are either weaker to melee attacks, magic attacks, or purely solstice attacks, such as the case of the Dwellers. Also, to save yourself from a crazy enemy ability such as immense damage or healing, you have to use abilities, combos, or ultimate attacks which will help to either cancel it out if you're lucky and well prepared, or at the very least mitigate the effects of it. Also, the ultimates and combos are amazing with their own cutscenes, the ways the characters work together, and their unique effects. For example, Raishan's ultimate is the Great Eagle, which we'll talk more about later, which helps to do a lot of damage to your opponents and heals everyone in your party at the same time. That's currently on the battlefield, by the way. That's my favorite one for battle. However, the sentiment and emotion attached, I'd have to say that Soraz is my favorite. With her summoning the pirate crew through the portal, then marching out in front, and summoning the Vespertine to attack with its cannons is so sick. I promise we'll talk more about the Vespertine soon. Back to the bosses at hand. Malcolmud is this cute, such ugly beaver looking thing that can use magic and was outcasted by the city above ground, aka his own people. You fight both him and his giant dragon of a Pokemon. If you don't get rid of the salamander, then Malcolmud will use that as an opportunity to attack with it, unleashing a can of whoop ass on your big old behind. However, once the boss fight is done and over with, Malcolmud is swayed into changing his ways, courtesy of Gaul and his big heart. Due to this, he was able to help us out with some later game content to get to the Sea of Stars. All Malcolmud ever wanted to be was understood and feel useful, and it took someone completely different to him to help realize his ideals, which ended up softening his heart. Even at some points, Malcolmud was saying stuff like, "I hope you like this and I did this for you." If that ain't the sweetest thing I ever heard, then I don't know what is. One of my favorite boss fights is the final Acolyte one, where all four of them are gathered together. Initially, you fight them in duos, 1 and 3 and 2 and 4. However, here it's a fair fight. Damn, is it anything but an easy one. The plan might be simple, but executing it is a little bit hard. For instance, the first necessity is to get rid of 2, as he can heal his entire party with a good amount of health and can use paired magic with number 4, which crashes straight into you, not dealing the prettiest amount of damage ever seen before. After that, your next big threat is number 3. Not only does their normal attack hit 2 of your party members in one go, which is a big no-no in this game, but there's also a chance that they can also parry your attacks and counter you at the same time. After you defeat him, 1 and 4 are a lot more bearable to deal with, as they can't use joint attacks without the other 2, and are fairly alright to deal with without their respective counterparts. Let's talk about the bird cult leaders. This trio is known to be a pretty cruel group with their abuse of power over those that are within their domain. You've got Ratcheta, who looks like a somewhat badass Daffy the Duck, brother Kasugan, who's less of a smartass and more of a right-hand man, and their tribal chief. Oh wait, I meant their actual leader, Abstarak. This guy has the coolest design out of all of them, but damn, someone needs to tell him to take a chill pill, cause my man's is always stressed. They're the last of the bird people and followers of the Fleshmancer. However, we come to find out after this boss battle is the fact that they reveal to you, particularly Rayshawn, how in a way he's backstabbing them. For context, remember Alforal, Mr. Spiteful? Well, one of the many horrific things he's done was give his good old friend Rayshawn a gift. Now you may be asking, how was the gift horrible, Black Sugar? I'll tell you how. Alforal gave him the gift of the Great Eagle, the ultimate you use to annihilate your enemies with, help your allies, and fly across the sky. There's just one thing. This came at the cost of Alforal sacrificing damn near all the bird people and left the remaining 3 with the option to serve him or be sacrificed for his sick gift for Rayshawn. To make this hit even harder, this was before Alforal became known as the Fleshmancer, aka when he was still human, granted an immortal one. This means that his cruelness dated back a lot further than we all thought. Even Rayshawn, the guy who knows him best, is finding this out for the first time with us, albeit to his horror. Remember our ex-elder brother and sister, Erlina and Bruges? Well, they got their wish with the Fleshmancer, but at a cost, a hefty one. Making a deal with the Fleshmancer is like making a deal with the devil, because he'll grant your wish, but he'll also screw you over in some way, shape, or form. We'll talk about what Bruges turned into here, the Phase Reaper. This guy has one of the coolest designs in the game, is incredibly fast, and hits like a truck. He's given his wish, which was to be the fastest one there ever was, and to feel important, and to forget everyone. However, another one of his wishes got sidestepped for this one. That was to never fight Solstice Warriors ever again. Yeah, screw that wish, am I right? Due to his memory being forgotten, he wouldn't have even noticed. On top of that, why did Bruges and Erlina trust the Fleshmancer? This brother is the reason why damn near all your Solstice brothers and sisters are dead, and is the reason for damn near everything wrong with this world. It did sadden me that none of the other characters acknowledged this as Bruges and were more concerned with Erlina and her new form more than anything else. Like, did this man mean nothing to you? Rest in peace, Bruges. It was nice knowing you. Lastly, we've got Erlina in her new form with this amazing and dope cutscene. Erlina is now known as Elisandrel, who reflects a more demonic version of herself, with her main concern being power. However, as we fight her, we come to realize that her attacks are fairly weak in contrast to the Phase Reaper, who damn near one-shotted my crew at times. This is acknowledged by both her and the game, as she asks for more power and receives that in the method of a Phase 2. Because why not? And she becomes a Dweller. You've got to be freaking kidding me, right? No, I'm not, and neither is she. With this new form, she hits like a truck, and although despite not having extra henchmen or limbs like other bosses to fight off, let's just say she doesn't need them with her abilities. For example, one of her abilities, and I would argue her most deadly one, would be the Crystal Prism. If this succeeds, it holds one of your party members in a pink prism, and once the countdown is over, it's insta-death, like no joke. Had it not been for Bist being in my party with his revival ability, this would have been much more of a nightmarish boss fight to deal with. That paired with Life Leech, which I don't think I need to explain, definitely showcases why Elisan is up there as a boss. Similar to the Phase Reaper, she's shown a cruel fate with there never being enough power for her, and a subsequent request for more power being denied. After this, the Fleshmancer then coldly erased her and ended her existence. The Fleshmancer may keep his promise, but surely Erlina and Bruges weren't that naive. Now were they? This stresses me out because it felt like they were a part of my family, who strayed away and became misguided with their troubled past and relationship with Moraine. I found out after the fact when I beat the game that apparently there was a true ending in which you actually get to fight the Fleshmancer as the final boss. Guile becomes relevant once more, and there are twists on certain characters and bits in the story where additions to the experience. So if I find the time in between uni work and other life commitments, I'll see if I can find a way to get to this true ending, more so for myself and less for the channel, as I usually do with everything I experience media related. One thing about the combat I forgot to mention is its attention to detail with the status effects and timing. You can't just button mash in this game, and fairly enough, it'll either punish or reward you based on your skill level, which isn't too harsh in my opinion. Another thing I love about this game is the amount of lore it's able to fit in its 30-hour time frame of the main story. You can read these in the form of campfire stories provided by Teeks the Historian. These include the Vespertine, scene, an ancient ghost ship, which includes a confrontation and mutiny in which Hortense and the rest of the crew members made Stormcaller, the captain walked a plank and died. After that, he proceeded to haunt it and that particular area and its remains for eternity, inspired to Hortense and the rest, until you defeat him then. I love these stories because they provide understanding to the world and its events, past, present, and future, which helps it to feel lived in and as to help you get invested in its history. For example, when one of the acolytes talks about his body hurting a lot from a rose, this is revealed to be the vampire rose, which ensnares everyone who looks at it to take part in their own corruption. There was a promise that came from this cursed rose, which was eternal life. However, this comes at the cost of every second holding the vampire rose, a year would be added to the lifespan. But for every year gained, a thorn would grow on one of their bones. Mind you, this came as a result and a reminder of death, not to cheat her. Damn. There's more pieces of lore like this, but the thing is, I want you to experience the rest of it for yourself if you haven't played the game by this point. To which I say, go and do so. Just after you finish watching my video, that is. I am a YouTuber after all. Gotta grow this channel by any means necessary. That brings us to a super long credits list. So long that there's a speed up button and controls to even ultra speed through it. No kidding. In it, you get to see how the various characters of the world are living and what they're getting up to past the events of the main game. That brings us to the end of this video. I know, but the show must end at some point. I trust that if you're here, either you actually watched through this long video, to which I say, you truly have my thanks, or you skipped through the other sections to be here, to which I say, I hope you enjoyed your stay. Boy, it's been a while since my editor and I worked on a long video like this. For instance, the Kingdom Hearts video was recorded in October of last year, and the Dance Gavin Dance one was recorded back in February this year. It's the end of July, y'all. Well, as of me writing this, that is. Funny thing is, I thought both of those videos were gonna flop, but y'all proved me wrong with that, and thankfully so. So either y'all are a bunch of masochists, or y'all actually enjoy the deep dives and longer videos, to which I would have to say, thank you once again. Because of how well those videos are doing, it's getting me closer to my goal of becoming a YouTube partner and getting monetized. I hope y'all enjoyed watching this video. Let me know what your favorite parts were and your experience with the game. Thank you guys for watching, and this is Black Sugar Lovin', out.